God of War is a linear game, but as you play, the game manages to push that constrained feeling of a linear game away, delivering more breathable linear levels and a less constrained experience. The usual design of linear games is to put the player on a predefined linear path, enwrapped by the often inaccessible environment that keeps the player from doing anything but proceed on that main path and unfold the pre-designed experience. Opposingly, the design of non-linear games try to deliver a fairly unconstrained experience that unfolds based on the player's approach. Non-linear games with open worlds let the players have their way absolutely. The experiences in their non-linear open worlds are guided by the player, unlike in a linear world where the player is required to follow the lead. So, if you think about it, there's one word that can really define the major difference between linear and non-linear experiences, and that word is freedom. This experience of freedom is a reason why the often confined worlds of linear games directly contrast the diverse and more accessible environments of open world games and the respective experiences they contain. The only reason why you might want to create a feeling of openness in a game's linear world is to deliver this sense of freedom that makes the in-game world feel a little more real and believable. And this is exactly where God of War begins to deliver a little more open linear levels by attempting to paint a sense of freedom in its beautiful but linear world. God of War begins by attempting to push this exact typical experience of a linear game away by actually letting the players break free from the main path and go to non-mandatory areas and do non-mandatory things instead of only what is absolutely a must to proceed in the game's timeline. The game's level design tries to create a little space between that confining guidance of a linear level and the player's will, by not fully forcing the player's will to conform to the pre-designed linear structure, but by granting the player the freedom to choose, a choice to either proceed on the main path or deviate and explore further. Exploration was one of the three core pillars of God of War's overall design, and to let the players get off the main path and discover an area that the game doesn't tell about or point to makes the players feel there is more to do than just get to where the game takes you. It satiates the player's curiosity and makes the environment feel more than just an inaccessible backdrop for the written storyline. One aspect of non-linear levels is that you have more room to maneuver. And what further contributes to that non-linear experience is more than a single direction to choose from and go to. Linear games very seldom let the players choose directions. While God of War is one of them, it smartly creates a sense of openness in its levels by creating illusions of multiple pathways. Big rocks and huge trees help create these diversions that make the area feel more bigger and intricate, suggesting much unknown setting to be discovered and explored. Taking one of these detours and not directly following Atreus on the main path is often rewarded with an interaction, collectible, or resources, encouraging the player to deviate from the obvious direction often and explore, while simultaneously delivering an experience that does not keep the player fully confined and proceeding on one single linear path. The collectibles and resources create a fair trade-off between the illusion of pathways and the player's actual expectations of a different approach, instead of the pathways plainly existing as an empty design trick. These simple but well-designed detours that can sometimes seem as distinct as a left and right choice are a smart design trick to deliver at least a hint of non-linearity in a linear level. On top of additional areas and the idea of multiple pathways, to further emphasize the feeling of openness and the ghostly suggestions of non-linearity, God of War further dramatizes a deep sense of discovery through companion interaction and behavior when the player chooses to explore an off-path area. If you notice, Atreus always takes the main path way ahead of the player, hinting you which of the multiple paths is the way to progress in the storyline.
Yeah, this way.
leaving the other parts and the optional areas completely on the player's choice and decision, contributing to the player's freedom. So when the player chooses to explore these off-path areas, it feels like they discovered some part of the game that maybe nobody else knew about, birthing a feeling of an individualized and unique experience. Listen to how Atreus reacts when you go off the main path towards these areas.
Here's this way. I can see more tracks. Where are you going? I think he's this way.
Atreus reminds the player of the main path, further adding to the player's curiosity of what might then lie on this not main path. Further, when exploring, Atreus no longer runs ahead but follows the player and goes on to ask questions like,
Now where do we go from here?
subtly stressing on that unfamiliarity of an unknown area that neither the game nor the companion pointed out to the player. The companion's surprised and unknowing reaction to exploring these off-path areas glorify the player's personal decision and further stresses on that sense of discovery in the player, especially in a kind of an experience that very seldom gives you areas that are not a mandatory part of the game's linear structure. The linear structure in a game sure grants the developers powerful control over the in-game experience to meticulously craft a meaningful and moving narrative or gameplay experience. But at the same time, it does not leave much room for unique player experiences, even more so once the pre-scripted experience has been witnessed. God of War tries to deliver a less confined linear world by taking it from the core of non-linear experiences and painting a subtle sense of freedom for the players. The game's world is beautiful, its narrative experience is moving, and the levels feel a little more open. But in no way do I mean to portray that non-linear games are superior to linear games or vice versa. Both have their places, and we have witnessed both designs deliver moving experiences. And probably it is God of War's this smart blend of linear and non-linear design that helped curate an interesting experience for the players to unfold. But in the end, if you liked the experience or not, or if the in-game world still felt heavily confining to you or not, that is your choice to make.